let's go!
Okay, British Masters 5k, we're off. Hello everybody, welcome to Battersea Park. Another Sunday, another British Masters race, this time the 5k, so a bit of a fast and furious one. Predictions today, if I can get anywhere near 19 minutes, I think, sort of sub 19, that would be good. Not really in 5k shape, but we'll see how we go. Just been watching the Valencia marathon. Matt Rees, I think, did a 2:24, so amazing run by him. I'll have to check the rest of the runners later on. Right, I'm off to get my number and a little warm up, and then we're off. Okay, jogging down to the start. This is the 5k warm up. Very freezing today. I haven't got arm warmers on. I don't usually race with arm warmers on, but it's got a little bit of a help as I get older, I suppose. Matching shoes then, Terry.
Got to be done.
Got to be done, yeah.
Nice one, Tim.
All right, good luck.
Let's go, let's go!
So 19:26 stopwatch. I might be a bit faster on chip. Yeah, I felt strong actually, but yeah, time was about what I expected. I was hoping for some 19, but I wasn't through on the day. But yeah, good hard run. That's all you can do really, isn't it? Okay, so just finished my warm down, just walking down the road here in the car park. So yeah, another 6.7 miles an hour. I need to get my miles in for Seville if I'm going to treat that seriously. So yeah, I was quite pleased with today. It wasn't perhaps as fast a time as I'd like to do, but I think what I felt was that I was trying as hard as I could. Looking at my mile splits, they were 6:08, 6:23, 6:18, and I had a really good sprint finish, but I was doing a 5-minute miling for the last sort of 200 meters. So I was thinking, well, why couldn't I keep that up for the rest of the race? I really did feel like I was flying at that point. So 19:26 is kind of on a par with what I've been doing this year. And I think I did a road race early in the year, it was about 19:18, but I think that course was slightly short, so maybe if anything this is as good as performance. Yeah, I think there's only so much you can do in terms of your fitness and where you're at and what you're training for. I mean, obviously they all like to run faster. All the guys I was talking to at the end of the race, sometimes I've beaten, but they were like 2 minutes ahead. So yeah, but I'm 56 now, so still trying my best, but sometimes you kind of feel that, you know, that some people are just better than you. There's not much you can do about it. But anyway, big shout out to the people in Valencia. I saw, as I said earlier, Matt Rees did 2:24. I have to get the exact time, and I'll put up a few more times of the people I featured in my video on the Ben Felton and Ben Park, so I hope they did well as well. So I hope you enjoyed this little look at the 5k. Sorry it wasn't much footage today, but obviously in the 5k you really need to get your head down and get on with it, don't you? So like and subscribe and all that, and see you next one then. Bye. What might be useful is to look at some stats. Here are the Garmin race predictors. Actually, on the morning of the race, it was actually predicting 19:26, and that is exactly what I did, so that's pretty amazing. Here's my current predictions on the screen here, 19:16. So I did the race, and I managed to convince it I could actually run 10 seconds faster. But a bit worryingly, I'm way off sub 3 at the moment, 3:17, so I've got an awful lot of work to do. In fact, I can't even do a half marathon at sub 3 pace according to my Garmin. And 10k 40:43. I mean, to be honest, these are pretty realistic, so it just shows I've got an awful lot of work to do. If we look at the 4-week graph here, you can see the 19:16. Actually, this is surprisingly accurate. Even if we look back to early November, I was just under 20 minutes then, so it definitely have at least got some sort of upward trend going on. But if I look back a year ago, now this is also quite interesting, was they changed the algorithm at some point. So I think, although I did do a 37:42 10k in January, you can see that there was some sort of step change in the algorithm, and it suddenly became more realistic. And then May here was when I had COVID, so it really did dip down and dropped a minute off my time by the time I started up again. So I think there's a steady sort of progress since then. Then I was ill again, so that dipped down again. So yeah, it shows my fitness is sort of coming back very slowly, but I've got quite a lot of work to do. Now, for the Stryd fans, I wore the Next Generation Stryd again today. I just wore the one Stryd today, and interestingly, I've got an average power here of 343, which is actually somewhat more power than I got when I was using the former Stryd Wind. I think the big difference is, look, today I got a 7% air power average, which normally with the Vaporfly Next percents on, is quite often I barely get 1%. So I think the big difference, as I said in previous videos, is the difference between the air power ratio with the Next Generation Stryd and the other one. So this does show my mile splits, although using kilometres on this scale. So 6:07 for the first mile, 6:24, 6:19, and then I had a really good sprint in. I was trying to catch another guy who just overtaken me. I managed to get him, so I was quite pleased about that. Heart rate is very low today. Didn't get above 144, I think, something like that. It was pretty cold, I think. But I did feel I was working quite hard, but perhaps this just shows there's more in the tank. Have a look at some of these other stats. Form power, very consistent, around about 75 watts. Ground contact time. You can see that when I was sprinting, the ground contact time went down to 169 from about 190, 195 most of the time. Leg spring stiffness. Again, when I went faster, that improved, so that's interesting. VO was pretty constant throughout, I suppose. What else have we got here? Cadence, around about 184, which is probably about right for me. So here is the power duration curve and the critical power. So I haven't really been using my Stryd too much. I've only started to use it again since I got the Next Generation Stryd a week or so ago. So this power curve here largely consists of my 5k race today and the 10-mile one last weekend. But interestingly today, the critical power went up from 314, which was based on the 10-mile time, to 335 today, which is actually more, I'd say, than I used to have when I was still running around just under 18 minutes a couple of years ago. So I think, as I said in the previous clip, that was all to do with the more air power you get in this one. I've actually adjusted my weight very slightly from 71 to 72, but that's not going to make too much of a difference, I would have thought. 4.66 watts per kilo. So if I was a cyclist, I would be a Cat 1 rider, wouldn't I? So running 19 minutes doesn't feel like it's that good, but at least I suppose it's probably above average, as one other famous YouTuber likes to say. And you can see that my critical power had been dropping largely because I hadn't actually been using the Stryd. Now it's suddenly jumping up again. So I think now 335 compared to the 343 I managed to average in the 5k today is going to be a more realistic figure to use going forwards. So here's my Strava. It's an interesting little add-on here, Strava Sauce I think it's called. That you can actually work out what was your peak pace during various bits of the race. So my fastest mile at any time in the race was a 6:06. Which actually was basically at the start. But the fastest 400 was also at the start. So maybe my sprint finish at the end wasn't quite as fast as I thought it was. But there you see that my fastest 3k was 6:14. So I managed to keep up basically the pace that I managed to 3k, also to 5k. So that was quite pleasing. As I said there, got 6:08 split, 6:23, 6:18, and a bit of a sprint finish in. Maybe that 401 wasn't quite enough to register here, but I was actually 5:03 pace for that last bit, which is just under 200 meters. As I said in the video, if I could manage to keep that up for the whole race, I would have been up the front, wouldn't I? or nearly there. So the 955 got 3.11 miles in Imperial, which is exactly 5k, so that's good. Now let's have a look at the GPS track, and I think what's interesting to note here, I think they've actually, an OpenStreetMap, which I think these maps are based from, the actual carriage drive south there is in the wrong way. If we turn on satellite map, you can see that the actual line follows the line of the trees much better, and where the road is supposedly isn't actually there at all. So I think you would have to say that that is a very, very good track. I mean, you can see that we were going around these bends, nice curves. They don't really actually in real life do as sort of exaggerated as that. This is a bit schematic, these roads. And you can see that nice sweeping curve there, a nice sweeping curve there. So, and a slight sort of adjustment out to the right when we actually finished. So yeah, I'd say that's a pretty amazing track. And if you're looking for a new GPS watch, I certainly recommend one that has the multi-band GPS in it. And I think from what I've seen, I'm really biased because I only really got Garmin's, that the Garmin implementation of the multi-band seems to be the best of all the ones so far. From what I've heard from other vendors, maybe not so good, but I think this is about as good as you can get. And I was discussing with Joseph that on his previous watch, I think it was a Phoenix 5, then the GPS seems to wander all over the place. So it's amazing how much things have improved. Now, another thing with Strava I found very interesting is this fitness and freshness graph. And obviously, the higher the graph is, the more fitter you are in inverted commas. I think it is slightly biased towards long runs. You can see that my 10-mile race there last week got a huge score. And then the 5K today, even with an hour warm down, was barely more than I did my hour shakeout yesterday. So that's not entirely correct, but it does paint a nice picture, I think, because at the moment you can see that my fitness is as high as it's been in the last 3 months. There was a big dip there when I was ill for 2 weeks and couldn't run. But if we track back the last 6 months, you can see that my fitness now is as high as it's ever been. And that period 6 months ago is when I had COVID. So if we then map back to the last year, then we had this peak. Now, interesting, that peak corresponds to when I did my 37.42 10k in January, which was easily my best race this year. So looking at this, there's a huge correlation between how fit I think I am and how am I doing in races and to this graph. So then after the 37.42, I did another 10k, which wasn't quite so good on a sort of a more windy day. Then I got a bit of an injury, and then I got COVID. So I went from like hero to zero very quickly. So I went from like maximum fitness for the last couple of years to this massive trough here. So I think I basically spent the whole of the year trying to get back to fitness. So I had a bit of a boost when I'd recovered from my injury, and then of course went down with COVID, so I was back down again. So yeah, and then it took ages to get over COVID. I think it was a good 6 weeks before I felt okay again. So I was slowly building my fitness back up, and that's when I started working with Matt Rees, actually, the Welsh runners. And then I got this other virus that knocked me out for 2 weeks, and I almost went back to square one again. So it's quite reassuring that I've actually now managed to get back to where I was, and hopefully I can push on. And now I need to start putting in these long runs, I think, for Seville, if I'm ever going to have any hope of getting anywhere near 3. I really need to decide if it's actually worth running it. I said before that I wouldn't run another marathon just to run round. But, if I'm on for, say, 3:2 if the Garmin predicts, I mean, it seems surprisingly accurate at the moment. So I think I'm going to have to sort of watch that with interest and see how it's getting on. If it's telling me 3:15, maybe it's not worth the effort. But if it's telling me 3:01, 2:59, then maybe I need to go for it. So is there any other websites you like to use to measure your fitness? Another one I use sometimes is Runalyze. Now this is a bit almost too small a font. I think I might do another dedicated video on how each of the different websites and how each one sort of predicts your current fitness and see how accurate it is. I mean, as I said, the Garmin one seems amazingly accurate at the moment, almost too accurate that it's not worth running the race because you always know what it's going to be before you start. But I live in hope that I'll hopefully buck the trend one day and suddenly surprise it, as it were. Right, let's see if I can talk to you. Hi guys, how you going?
Alright, I think.
Do you win a team, or is there a team?
There is a team, hopefully we've won, but I don't know yet.
Yeah. Come on guys.
We'll see, how are you? How you did? You did well last week.
19. Yeah, I got round.
10 miles.
It was a bit hillier than this one for sure.
Yeah. 6, 7.
Yeah, first of all, it's my 3 minutes, but no.
Yeah, we'll have to wait for the results, but 3 of us in 18, 15, something. So
okay. Yeah.
Certainly a medal. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's not really see a vets race, and like you sort of like look around and there's like no one behind you. You think, what's going on? Yeah, it's industrial churches, I suppose. 10 miles what's a date? You can sort of like get into it a bit more. So 6 laps on them. Yeah, right. On guys. Say hello.
How you doing?
Not so bad. I felt really fast, but my stopwatch said otherwise. So I thought at least I tried hard as I could. Yeah. I beat something up the home straight, which was pleasing because he came past me, and I thought, right, not having him. And he was going from Elmbridge to 60, so I can't let 60 for Elmbridge. Really.
Oh, guess what?
Yeah.
I was coming up to the end, nip and tuck with Terry.
Oh right.
We were just nip and tuck. He was like, he overtook me and I overtook him, and he just picked me at the bloody line.
But Terry's not really known for his sprint finish either, is he? So,
well, that's just all about me.
But it's a really fast home straight, isn't it? If you can really put the pedal down.
It's not longer than you think.
Pity I didn't keep the pace up for the rest of the race. But yeah. How did you get on? It's Gary, isn't it?
Yeah, Gary. Yeah. I think it's about 16:45.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I'm happy because I've had a niggly hamstring last month, so I'm not really doing speed work this week.
So what age group are you?
50.
It's impressive.
Yeah, I know. You've got the likes of him. And
what was your time then?
16:59.
Oh, okay, so you're just ahead. Yeah, and you're 50 as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
I don't know how many were ahead of us.
But you're in the.
No, I've got a few.
Which race was that? Masters, right? Was that one of the road ones?
I've done the road. I've done 10 mile, 5k, mile. But I think I bought this when I did the World Masters.
Oh, okay.
Which one did you do?
Yeah.
I've done Leon and Malaga.
I'm doing Torrent next.
Oh, are you? I love it.
Oh, a bit of fun.
So you'll do one Telford, isn't it, soon?
We're doing Telford next week.
Okay, yeah.
Next weekend.
That's the Masters selection race, is it? Oh, okay. So what do you think you need to do to get qualified for that?
It's
34?
and something. It's not either. Even sub 35. Almost. We'll probably do it.
Yeah.
My age top 3.
Yeah.
You do need a top 3, and it does depend who turns up.
Do you need top 3 on the day or top 3 over the whole season? Or? Oh, okay, so, but there are other races if you don't make it that one, are there? Is that
there's 4 races a year in each distance, so 10k, half.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's a good thing to aim for, isn't it?
Yeah. I did qualify last time, but I had to miss Bristol because I was at Berlin.
Oh
And, yeah, I know you did.
Well, I say it's good.
Did you see any of the event?
Yeah,
I
I
saw
know you
Matt
did.
Rees did 2:24 because
Did
he crossed the line. James C was commentating, so I just spotted him as I was leaving the house. So,
Did he?
but I couldn't get the tracking. I couldn't get the tracking to work. So I don't know how anyone else did. I'll have to check in a minute.
That's a good result for him.
Oh, it's excellent. It's 5-minute PB.
I had 2:23 high for him. How did Ben Felton do?
I don't know. The tracking wasn't working. I couldn't get it to work, so I'm not sure. I'll have to check.
How was the women's race?
What's her name? Or somebody. I can't. Sometimes people win and you don't know who they are, do they? You forget. Like the lady who was really good. D-Day. She was second, 2:16. But she was up. They were on world record pace until about last 5k. I think it just dropped off. But she was. Yeah. I mean, the winner did just outside the world record, so 2:15, I think, something like that. Yeah. So the male winner did 2:1 high. Some kipped
2:01.
But you get like these people running like amazing times. You never even heard of them. That's the problem with running, isn't it? There's no personalities. Like I think that's why the YouTube's so popular, because people don't associate with runners who are like faceless Kenyans running 2:1, do they? But they do associate with people running
Conditions.
sub 3. You know.
I did Valencia last year, as you noticed, and it was really windy last year, I thought.
Must have been ideal today.
Must have been good today.
Because
Yeah.
there's such long straights at Valencia. When you're against
dead flat though, isn't it? The way it looks,
it is
isn't it?
dead flat.
Yeah.
But when you're against the wind, you're against the wind for quite a long time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because they're really long.
Okay, that can be depressing, can't it? Like today, it was never that far. Whatever breeze there was, it didn't seem to be too much until you turned and you got a bit of a help again, didn't it? Yeah. Oh, well done, guys.
Yeah, cheers, Tim.
You're
Mike Bruce.
Oh, Mike. Of course, yeah. You're usually sort of organising the race, aren't you, rather than running in it? Yeah. Didn't recognise you in the kit. Yeah. How'd you get on today?
Well, I think a bit quicker than I've done for a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's always good, isn't it? Yeah.
Might have been third.
It's a bit depressing. Was you? Oh, you were in the second wave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, isn't it? Oh, so, yeah, it's all right. I did about 19 and a half, so yeah, it's a bit depressing in this sort of field because everyone's like really good, aren't they? They're the best runners in the country, but it's good to come out and do it. Yeah. Oh, well done.
All right then.
Cheers.